So welcome to Yogaberry, your yoga for scoliosis community. My name is Christine Yogaberry, and I'm so excited to be talking to the lovely Elise Browning Miller today. And for me, Elise is kind of the queen of yoga for scoliosis, and she has inspired so many of us yoga for scoliosis teachers. And Elise is a senior Iyengar yoga teacher. She's a yoga therapist, and she's been teaching yoga since 1976. And she has studied with BKS Iyengar directly. She's published many articles, the book Yoga for Scoliosis, a path for students and teachers. And she's also got a Yoga for Scoliosis DVD. So welcome, Elise, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you, Christine. Lovely to be here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So I actually came across you, I think it was about 12 years ago when I was in my mid-20s and I was struggling with back pain from my scoliosis. I was already into yoga. So at the time I was practicing Ashtanga yoga. Mm-hmm. And one of my teachers gave me one of your, so she printed out an article on the yoga journal, and it was about yoga for scoliosis, and it was very, very clear, just describing the different curves and just how yoga can help. And I always felt yoga was so beneficial, but there was just something that wasn't quite right. I just always felt like I was just still really lopsided, and I was just seemed to be stronger on one side than the other. So I was so excited when I finally found someone who seemed to understand scoliosis. And then I got your DVD as well, obviously, and then started to adjust my poses. So this is why I'm very excited that we get the chance to talk, and I just did your training, obviously, as well. So would you be able to tell us a little bit about your own scoliosis journey?
Yes, I'd be happy to. Well, like you, I had done some yoga and didn't feel quite right. So I was very happy to meet BKS Iyengar in 1976. And that was when the light came on, for the light on yoga, as he did. So I had much more of an understanding just from his adjustments. But my story is, I was to go back a little bit, I was diagnosed with scoliosis when I was 15, 16. And already my growth had ended. And they discovered I had a 49-degree curve, which is between 45 and 50. Often orthopedic surgeons will recommend surgery. So one surgeon, local, recommended I have the surgery right away. And that's something I didn't want to do. I was very athletic and into my body, and it sounds horrible to get a rod put up my back. So my brother was a doctor, a pediatric cardiologist at Children's Hospital in Boston, and he knew of a well-known yoga for scoliosis orthopedic surgeon. So I went to Boston, and he was an older man about to retire. He said, "Oh, yes, you're right on the cusp. So many doctors recommend surgery, but because your growth isn't finalized, it looks like you're at the end of your growth. The curve will not increase as much. So start swimming," is what he said, "and exercising." And I already knew how to swim, so I became very involved with swimming. We went to college. Was on the swim team, and my back wasn't bothering me at all. And that's really typical of teenagers, where you don't have very much pain. I then went off to the Peace Corps in Brazil, and that's where I started to have some pain because I was more sedentary, not regularly swimming. And then the yoga came into my life. I met a fellow Peace Corps volunteer who I think I had a crush on. From Long Beach, California, blonde surfer boy. And he knew yoga. So we did some yoga together. And that my back did feel better, much better. course, I never saw him again because his roommate was a drug dealer and they went off to jail the next day. But he was the messenger that yoga could help.
Yeah.
I then went back to the States and I did get involved with another system of yoga, Integral Yoga Institute with Swami Satchidananda, and it was absolutely wonderful. I came to yoga after reading Autobiography of a Yogi, and there was the meditative aspects of integral yoga. So I got a lot from it, but the postures, it was not very specific. The same poses were taught. And again, like you, I felt like something just wasn't right. And of course, then I was fortunate enough to be in California when Iyengar he had his first trip to California, and I was in that class, and that was where then he had adjusted me, and all of a sudden I felt more aligned than I ever had. So that was the beginning of my journey, and actually did a lot of yoga. Soon after meeting him, my husband, and I had a child, and during that pregnancy, I was doing 2 to 3 hours of yoga a day because it was the one time I wasn't going to school or wasn't working. We were in a very short amount of time. And my curve decreased from 49 to 39 degrees. I had an X-ray.
So during pregnancy, you say you think it was kind of during that time that it decreased, or just over the whole?
Well, it just happened to be during that time. But now that I look back on it, your the hormones are different, and there's a softness, and maybe being pregnant, it was easier for me to decrease that curve. I don't know. That's totally hypothetical. But
yes.
I do know that I decreased it by 10 degrees.
By 10 degrees, yes, and that's a big improvement.
Yeah, but I was doing 2 to 3 hours of yoga, so it was quite intense. And then I came to California, and that's where I went to the Iyengar Institute and furthered my studies with BKS Iyengar and going to Pune. And at that time, I was also doing Rolf. I was being Rolf. I was done physical therapy, massage, but I kept coming back to seeing that the yoga it was the foundation. And what was so wonderful, it was so empowering because I was doing something rather than somebody else, doing it for me. Though I even saw chiropractors during that time, and all that was supportive, but it was really the yoga that was the foundation.
Yes, yeah. It's very empowering, isn't it, when you know that there is something you can do yourself, and it's much cheaper as well, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Much cheaper, but it's also a self-discovery, and to me it goes along with the spiritual aspect of yoga, because what I really realized from Iyengar, it was the consciousness and awareness, and having that awareness in specific areas, and learning to be stable in one area and then try to create movement in another to correct the curve. So, to me, that's part of the journey, and I'm very thankful in some ways. It was a blessing in disguise, because I could have done yoga just unconsciously for the rest of my life, but there was no choice. I really wanted to feel like I was more aligned and balanced.
Yeah. So when did you get into teaching?
Well, I went to the Iyengar Yoga Institute in San Francisco, and then I started teaching immediately. And then in 1980, I went to India, 78, 79, had more. At that time, BKS Iyengar was giving intensive. So I have a funny story about that. I came thinking, he gave me all these adjustments in California. He's going to take care of me and align me and give me all this attention. And he was very good at psychologically figuring you out. And so he just ignored me for the first 3 weeks and made me do all this very intense, wonderful yoga. And I was getting stronger and, felt empowered, but not specific with my scoliosis. And at that last week, he looked at me and said, now you're strong enough for you to take my adjustment. That was when he gave me quite a bit of attention, and then did so thereafter for many years. So, and it's funny because in having scoliosis, or maybe it's life, you have to have that balance between, particularly as a teacher, taking care of yourself, but at the same time not getting obsessed with it, and seeing that you can be strong and balanced and live a normal life. Because to me, yoga really helps you to live a normal life, and to be able to do other things, not just yoga, but to be free in your body, and balanced in your mind.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Do you feel that people sometimes get a bit obsessed with correcting the curve?
Well, I certainly did. And you do need that balance of attention, certainly. But sometimes we can get obsessed with it, and that's all we think about. I gave the example of taking a meditation retreat, and just all I was doing was sitting there concentrating on trying to straighten my spine.
Right.
But letting go sometimes and just being present. I mean, you do the best you can, and then sometimes you have to let it go at times. It's part of the yoga philosophy too, santosha.
Yes.
Present with what is one of the niyamas. It's
all,
for me, it's been such a journey of learning. But definitely, I would say the self-awareness has been key, and Iyengar with such preciseness of the poses. It's not just about the body; it's about the mind as well, and being conscious and being present, and being aware. So, but the breathing is quite important too, and that because of the nature of the scoliosis, particularly in the thoracic area, that's been a key factor for me, and that's how I suggest people start their practice, with some very simple breathing.
Yeah.
The ribs, the intercostals are so spread that it's tight. There's a tightness there, a weakness, but the air goes there much easier than the concave side, where the intercostal muscles haven't been exercised. So to bring consciousness to the other side, breathing into that area, is key. And that's an accepted principle in physical therapy. Even doctors recognize that that's an important element. Because when you have a very extreme curve of 80, 90, over 100 degrees, then definitely scoliosis can be life-threatening. It's the cardio and pulmonary function, the heart and lungs. So, and you're working from the inside too with your breathing, because when you're filling the lungs, the ribs, expanding, the intercostal stretching, and breathing into the lungs on that side, then the ribs are connected to the spine. So you're actually internally having an effect of adjusting the spine.
Yeah, so you're kind of working from the inside out.
Correct. Yes. And I feel that, in my practice, when I try to get students to work from there. And of course, we use the props in Iyengar yoga. We have specific poses, both supportive, like Anukasana, lying over bolster, and the more active ones like Vasisthasana to counter the curve, and even standing poses to lengthen the concave side and to contract the convex side, and to balance the spine more center. So, of course, there's the physical exterior support that we give, but I also feel the internal consciousness of the breath is also very key, and also to release pain. So
yes,
that's an important factor. The breath can be very powerful there, and I've experienced pain. That's what brings you to yoga often. That was certainly the factor for me. All of a sudden, I got very keen on learning yoga. It wasn't just the surfing boy.
It wasn't just the surfer boy. So how would you say is yoga different from you know, for anyone who might be just looking at different kind of therapies, how would you say it's different to Schross therapy or to just normal physical therapy?
Well, to me, it's a whole body experience. I think I already covered this, the consciousness of the breath and awareness and being very specific. But, you know, I feel it's also a mind consciousness as well. I just feel that a person needs to, when they finish whatever they're doing, whether it's physical therapy or self method or whatever, is to come out with a feeling of well-being and feeling centered. And I would say that centered physically and mentally, I would say that's definitely an aspect of yoga that goes way beyond just something physical.
Yes.
So I mean that's the first and foremost, is that we're affecting the well-being of ourselves in a holistic way, not just as an exercise to fix, you know, or to curve. There's much more involved. That's my interest all these years. Why I do yoga for every day, you know, for that reason, as well as for obviously.
Yeah. So how has your practice kind of changed over the last I don't know, how many years is it now since you?
Something like that.
Yes.
Not going on maybe 50. Well, you know, of course, there's the age factor, but I think always there's a consciousness of my scoliosis. And when I wake up, I think what I become better at is being present with what's going on that day. So it's like I have many tools of yoga poses, and I pull out what feels appropriate for me. And that could be if I'm in discomfort. I've been traveling. I've been on the plane for 10 hours. I might do something that's much more supportive and breathing into the tightness and working more directly with lengthening the spine than trying to adjust to correct the spine. Because the muscles are already tight on the convex side or side, and you're just trying to correct and strengthen right away, that's not going to really often help relieve the pain. So that would be one focus. It would probably be similar poses, but focusing much more on the ones that would relieve pain. Now, if I'm feeling good, I'm strong, I've been doing a regular practice, then I might be much more active in doing standing poses and attempting to correct the curve and strengthening poses, and you know, also doing the basic twists. How I'm a little different than the physical therapist is I do believe in back strengtheners as well as back bends have been very helpful for me to bring in the convexity, to contract and strengthen the back. Also, I teach very specific and very simple twists sitting in the chair or standing and put on the chair. So they're not huge twists, but it's bringing you the consciousness of both lessening the lateral curve as well as taking the opportunity to be very specific to, I call it de-rotation, in other words, lessen the rotation.
Yeah.
Going backwards to going forward. So, quote a friend of mine, Lois Steinberg, says, what goes out must come in, what goes in must go out. So I really like that, and the simplicity of it, particularly for beginners, but getting that sense of just working also with the rotational component. So, you know, my focus principles are, first, you want to focus on breathing, lengthening the spine. Then there's often strengthening can come even with standing poses along with the lengthening, but being specific with strengthening. Postural alignment is key in how to find that. Sometimes you can find that easier once you've done some poses. where you're finding more alignment. And then you stand up, Tadasana, that's a wonderful pose to focus on alignment. But if you're given a few poses and adjustments in your Tadasana, you're going to have a better success at finding that alignment. And again, we use tools like blocks between the legs and straps over the shoulders to even the shoulders and such. And that gives people a sense of what is aligned. And often they will say, oh my gosh, I feel I am not aligned anymore. I'm not aligned. And why is that? Because the proprioceptors from the brain have gotten used to this misalignment. So you start to get more aligned, or a teacher aligns you. I don't know if you felt that, Christine. And then you say, oh, could I be straight? This is a new place. So eventually you do get that connection and you sense what really is aligned. Sometimes we even look at a mirror to get that feedback. Not that I always use a mirror, but sometimes it's needed. As a matter of fact, when I went to India one year, Geeta Iyengar, B.K.S. Iyengar's daughter, who worked with me extensively, said to me, it's all your fault. I had to buy a mirror because all these scoliosis students you're sending to me don't know where their bodies are. So alignment and getting a sense of what truly is aligned is key. And from the inside, again, so that goes back to the consciousness, the awareness that we gain from practice. If there's one thing I can say to everyone, it's the consistency of the practice. And not getting overwhelmed with doing so many poses, but choosing in the beginning, particularly for beginners, 3 or 4 that you know that are really effective, and including lengthening, including how to adjust the lateral aspects, the rotational aspects, and strengthening is key as well.
So do you have like a set of favorite yoga poses if you had to narrow it down to, let's say, 3 or 4?
Oh, so hard. But no, I would say downward dog is a key one for me. And I start with beginners with what I call puppy. I'm kind of coined that term, not having to deal with the hamstrings, but lengthening the spine. And I would say downward dog, though, really so many things. You're getting a partial inversion. You're getting some strengthening of the arms. You're stretching your hamstrings. It's a chest opener if you're doing it correctly. So you're getting all of those. You're getting every aspect of yoga except twist. So that would definitely be one. I would put in definitely going laterally is important in standing poses, whether it's triangle or another pose, gate pose, because you have to give individual attention to each side. A key pose for me is wide-legged going forward. That's been very important to me because I have had other conditions come up with scoliosis. I developed stenosis about 3 years ago, which is the narrowing of the spinal canal. And that was due as my orthopedic surgeon, who's become a friend, who specializes in scoliosis. He calls that scoliosis stenosis. So I was getting down the leg, and it was due to having one rotation, my left lumbar going to the left, and then I had L4-5 going to the right, and that suppressed my spinal canal. So Geeta Iyengar gave me a whole medical practice with that. And with that, if the legs are wide and you're stretching forward, so you're getting a horizontal stretch to relieve the nerves. And then also a lengthening of the spine. So that's one of the key poses that really helped me and got me out of pain.
So downward dog, gate pose, and the wide-legged forward bend.
I work with back strengthening, so like this method on your tummy, just strengthening, not going into major extension. And then even poses where you have the natural curves, one of the physical therapy poses, of stretching an opposite arm and leg on your knees. You can do that on your tummy as well.
Yeah.
Some other variations of Shalabhasana. Really, a lot of physical therapists teach these back strengthening. They come from yoga. Shalabhasana are local.
Yeah.
Yoga's been around a lot longer. But also, as Lauren Fishman has done research, Scoliosis is a wonderful back strengthener and correcting of the curve.
Yes.
Side plank.
Side plank, yes. So I was going to say, for anyone who doesn't know what Vasisthasana is, it's side plank. Yeah.
And I can really see the value of that. I have two major curves, so I focus on correcting the curve in my thoracic, and then also the other side with my lumbar. And I use a chair for beginners with a hand on the chair rather than the floor, because they have access to being very specific to their curve. So I find the chair a very useful prop for upward facing dog as well as back pose, side plank. So chair, and then of course all the twists.
All the twists, yeah. Yeah, so are there any poses, I mean, I'm sure you get asked this all the time. Are there any poses that you think you shouldn't do?
Well, and the answer I usually give first and foremost is it's not so much what not to do, it's how to do it.
Yeah. So
that's number one. But there are some that you have to be very careful, and I don't encourage to begin doing these. One is headstand, Shirshasana, particularly if there's a cervical curve. And there are many ways that we work with ropes and pelvic spring hanging forward and by your pelvis. So that can alleviate it. If you're strong, young, not neck issues, and not an extreme curve, then yes, that can be fine. But you have to learn how to do it correctly and without losing that lift of the spine through the legs. So that was one you have to be cautious. And I would say the seated twist, where you're crossing an arm over, particularly on the side of your convexity, particularly on the side of your curve. That just makes the curve worse.
It just makes it worse, yes, yeah.
So you have to back off with those. I'm not saying never do it, but you have to do it in a way where you're being conscious and you learn from the basic twists, as I teach in chair twists, how to then find that alignment. You really have to find the alignment in every pose, really.
Yes.
But there's some that are going to be challenging anytime you're rounding, and also seated forward bend, that I call them only do seated forward folds. And that means folding from the hips, where you can still create the extension, because there's a tendency to round. That just brings that part of your spine, the convexity, the part that's already going back, it just makes it more round, more kyphotic. So it's how, it's not I'm saying never do seated forward bends, but it's how do you do.
What about back bends?
Well, I'm a personal advocate for back bends. I think that I feel physically, emotionally, mentally just transformed with back bends. And I feel it gives me a chance. Now, that's taken some years of awareness, but it's brought that consciousness of my shoulder blade that wants to wing out more on my back. I've learned correctly from the Iyengars how to do back bends so I don't compress the lower back, stretching your hip flexors, psoas, opening your chest, opening your thoracic spine more. So I've very rarely had any lower back issues with doing back bends. Anything, my posture is better, my back feels stronger. So I know that's very counter to some physical therapy philosophy, but it's from my own experience. I feel that my spine has been corrected in many ways after that.
Yes.
That's my experience. That's all I can give you is my experience and guidance to my students and my teachers, how to keep it so that it can be beneficial to not only correcting the back, but a sense of well-being.
Yes, absolutely. That's that. Yes, and for me, that has always been the priority, is that I feel good in my body rather than having the perfect spine.
Yeah, I often talk about that. Let go of perfection.
Yes.
I do yoga to live my life more fully, not to be perfect.
Yes, I like that. I like that. So what do you? So you've listened to my interview with Dr. Lauren Fishman, and obviously you know him as well. I think you said you went to meet him as well. What do you think of the? What would you say to kind of people who might be looking into this one or two pose approach?
Well, the big key is that they do something every day, or at least 4 or 5 days, and that's what his study was based on, and he had some improvements with the poses. So that's key. So I think he's on the right track there. But I just, I'm a yogi who believes that there's got to have a balanced diet, and so I believe that more than just doing one pose to strengthen, as I said, there's the importance of lengthening and relieving pain. And so I think a teacher has to learn, be present with the student as to what the focus is. And if you have many more tools, then you can draw from those tools as to what for you with scoliosis, someone with scoliosis, what is best for you to do. But even in my practicum, this is something you have to do. I'm one of my yoga for scoliosis trainers. I say give the student 3 poses that they have to do every day. So there is an important element of not overwhelming.
Right. Yes.
That's them to practice. But I just feel there's more to yoga for scoliosis than just giving 1 or 2 poses. If one has that interest, if there's somebody, well, I just have to do this, and still have my back, and I'm not really into yoga, then yes, that might be appropriate. But I think you'll get much more from full program. And it might be 3 or 4 poses for a beginner. But then, I don't know how you feel about this, but I get on the yoga mat and it's like I do my 3 or 4 poses and then I want to do more.
Yes, yeah.
I was asking to do more.
Yeah. And I always think I love restorative yoga, so I've been studying with Judith Hansen Lassiter, and
yes, I know her well. She was my first Iyengar teacher.
Oh, was she? Yeah.
Yes, in California, so we were dear friends. And yes, and that's part of the Iyengar approach, and we've certainly taken that and doing training for teachers. But it's such an important part to relax the nervous system. That's a whole other element. I feel that with scoliosis, the nervous system, the effect of the organs. So we're not just looking at the muscular body or the spine itself. It's how is the spine, how is that muscularity affected all the other systems in our body. And the restorative yoga, Anatastan lying over a bolster, bridge pose over a bolster, they're all so helpful.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And just
it's when you need that, yeah. So then you have those tools to bring them into your practice. So it can be much more dimensional, I believe. But I appreciate his approach in giving somebody something that they can do, and that's certainly good.
Yes, absolutely. Just doing something is already.
He's a doctor who is saying, no, surgery's not always just the way, or the bracing. But he has, a yoga experience as well. So that's wonderful.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Good. So what are you up to at the moment then? What is kind of your focus? You still teach regular classes in California?
Yes. So I do 3 things as far as yoga is concerned. I teach workshops around the world. I have a yoga center since 1980. Thank goodness I have 2 partners. It's important. I teach classes there. I teach 4 to 5 classes. I have a yoga for scoliosis class I give once a month there. And I have many back care classes that I give weekly. And then also I see clients privately. So, and I do that one-on-one. Like many people come from all over the world. I have a home studio, or I see them in my public studio. And
Yeah.
people Skype me as well. I did a session with a man in Germany just not too long ago by Skype. So I did that. So that's what I'm up to, besides the fact that I'm very excited to be a grandmother, and my grandson
All right.
on the way. So that's a big, wonderful thing in my life right now.
Yes, that's a lovely, lovely role. You've got, how many grandkids have you got?
One. So
One.
one son and one grandson. We'll see if another comes along the way.
Yeah, there's usually another one. When there's one, there'll usually be another one as well. Good. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Yes, my pleasure. Very nice to meet you in the workshop, and also to speak to you.